This is the talk of Music City real estate.
Welcome back to another episode of the Talk of Music City Real Estate,
where we educate and motivate all things real estate.
My name is Monty Moore with Realty One Group Music City.
Hey, and I'm Carey Ann with CMG Financial and my mortgage team.
Every week we'll be posting a new episode chock full of Nashville real estate value.
Yes, and you can follow along and subscribe at talkmusiccity.com.
Got a question for us? Ask away at questions@talkmusiccity.com.
Monty.
Carey Ann, Jason Hoover. We got an exciting guest with us today. We got a packed house. Yes. And a topic that I want to learn more about. I'm excited about that. And I don't know a whole lot about it. And usually when you've been in the business for almost 4 decades, you've had time to learn about everything, you know?
4 decades.
4 decades. So that puts
me... Did you get a trophy for that? Or, I mean, there's gotta
I think so.
Yeah.
There should be an award for the longest guy in the business. Although there are people around Nashville that have been in a lot longer than I have, believe it or not. When dirt was new, new dirt.
But I would dare to say not as active as you are.
Probably not.
Right, but, you are.
Yeah, I am active, that's for sure.
You are. So tell us all about
So's a wash machine.
Our guest here.
We have an amazing guest, Mr. Hunter McLees, and he's going to talk about this thing called syndication, and I'm excited about that. Welcome, Hunter.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about it and kind of bring some knowledge to the group.
Yeah, love that.
Some of our team members here at Realty One Group Music City here in Franklin are excited about the information that you've shared with them, and it feels like that's some of these folks are getting really truly involved in it. And
they are. I've had 2 brokers from the company reach out to me and want to kind of get a feel for this space, and they've kind of taken them in, and we're just chatting about the process and getting them started.
Love it.
So let's pretend like I don't know anything about it.
Because I don't.
Easy to do.
So actually, just talk to me. I don't know what we're talking about today.
Let's start at a high level, okay? Like let's pretend like you're talking to 3rd graders.
Okay.
At a high level. Okay. Go ahead and do that.
When I say high level, I'm saying, just kind of first of all, an overview before we go down deep into the situation. Okay. Certainly. It really starts with kind of deal finding. As we know, finding the property right now is pretty difficult. So that's a big piece of it. Not the main piece of syndication, but then also finding capital.
Finding the property. Let's break that down. What kind of property are we talking about?
So I deal specifically in multifamily space. Some of that will have your retail space. That's generally underneath if it's a tower. So multiple floors, you'll have a little bit of retail downstairs.
Okay.
So majority of that's going to be multifamily that we deal with.
Okay. And you said there's 2 components: finding the property and then generating the money.
Correct.
And you stand in the middle of that? Is that how that works?
Yeah, because sometimes I find the property and I dive into that space solely, while I've got other partners or business partners that will bring in the capital. And that's just from their basically sphere of influence, or whether they're going to be investing in the deal themselves.
So this is allowing an individual to not have to pay fully themselves. You create a partnership for each unit. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
So together, if people want to take what other knowledge, or if you go find someone that doesn't exactly know the investment aspect as far as multifamily goes, then you can group up with individuals that have a proven track record, and then invest your money, become more of a passive investor.
Wonderful. And then is this a long-term investment, or are these flips?
Not necessarily. It could be a long-term. We shoot for long-term. But if someone turns around and says, we want your property, and they give you a heck of a deal, we're not going to
turn it down. Yeah, because the whole goal is to increase wealth through this process.
There's always that opportunity cost. So if I bought a property and then sold it a year later for $1 million more, I can make more money with that $3 million or whatever it might be, instead of leaving it in that property.
I see.
So the point here is really leveraged income. Is that what the syndication part means? Is it? And let's say I can't afford a $10 million property, which would be absolutely true, but with 10 other people, I could do that, or X number of people.
Yep.
I mean, I'm assuming there's a minimum that you can get involved in something like this with, minimum out of pocket?
So typically we like to deal with accredited investors. So there's accredited and non-accredited, and those non-accredited investors could be sophisticated investors, and you're allowed up to 35 unsophisticated or non-accredited investors per deal. And a sophisticated investor is someone that's either got a financial background or a business background and has their own ability or knowledge to underwrite that deal and make sure it's going to be an investment or worthwhile investment. Accredited investor, on the other hand, is either makes $200,000 a year single, or $300,000 a year married or has a spouse, or has a net worth of $1 million or more. So those are kind of the hurdles that the investors have.
So this is specific criteria that you have to follow in order to get involved in a syndication.
Yep, because we have to abide by SEC guidelines, and if we ever get audited, they just want to make sure that we've vetted all of our investors to make sure that they know what they're getting into.
Oh, that's good. So this is not just, hey, let's get together.
It's the Wild West.
Yep, exactly.
Which we're experiencing out there. So let's say that I don't have $1 million, or I don't have that kind of value and so forth. Just we're speaking to a real estate audience here, a realtor audience of real estate professionals, that if they don't have it themselves, they probably know somebody who possibly does. So tell us the value. That's kind of a short version of what syndication is all about. Tell us why the viewers should be interested in this topic, even if they don't qualify themselves.
Just to be able to have that. So if you're our real estate agent, you're providing value by finding someone a house, and in turn those people are buying an asset that is going to grow in worth. It's going to appreciate, and at some point you reach back out to someone that you sold a house to 4 years ago. Now they've got this pot of cash. They could do a HELOC or whatever, and they now have the net worth of $1 million, or they make $300,000 or more. They can take that HELOC and invest that. Or they can do, there's other life insurance policies that you can pull from and invest those. So with life insurance, you're building a cash balance at, we'll call it 4% per year. But if you invest it into a syndication where you're making 10% per year, you're netting 6%. So you're still earning money over here on this asset, whether it's real estate, it's appreciating, whether it's life insurance or other annuities.
So if I'm a real estate agent and I help put something like this together, is there an incentive for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if I'm not involved in it directly?
Certainly. So I've worked with, or am working with Blake from the company, and we've basically put together our handshake agreement at this point, and we split. It's called, so there's GP shares. If you do a syndication, there's LP shares, and that's going to be made up of either whatever basis you want to call it. Generally, it's between 20 and 30% for GPs, and that's general partners. They make up the deal finders, the fundraisers, and so we take basically split that share. And so he gets part of the acquisition fee as well as part of that GP share.
What if you're out in about, like I think Michael Brobeck, right, has been looking for properties for you? What about that individual?
So Michael as well. So there's basically a pie chart, if you will, and we've broken it down into different sections. So it depends on what part of that pie chart it falls into. So for Michael's aspect, he's going to be a deal finder. He gets paid out on the acquisition fee as well, and then he'll also get a GP share pro rata based off of that pie chart. And so we'll call it 30% of that total 100% allocation, he's going to get that whole 30% if he brought that deal in. So basically, effectively, he'll get 30% of 30%, because 30% is that total pie of the 100% allocation of equity within that property.
So that's one way of doing it. The other way is I'm a real estate agent and I want to provide value adds to my clients, and I know that they are eager and wanting to grow their wealth, and over conversations you've heard this or that, and then you can make the connection as well.
Yep.
Sometimes my value adds, I don't make $1 off of them, but they grow my business and my worth in a bigger way later in life, right? Just by making those stronger connections.
Yep.
So that's another way you could do it.
And then they might end up referring you someone that, hey, this person bought me a house or helped me buy a house, and they also introduced me into this syndication where I'm now making money.
Right.
So this person has great value to me.
Right, that's what I was saying, yeah.
I introduce you to them?
Yeah, for sure. And then, or you could come across, because again, sometimes the finder players that want to be finders, they may just come across something great, or they want to spend the time to truly be a finder. I think you need to outweigh what makes the most sense for you and your business, right?
And it's what you're good at, too.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is a great value add, to know a lot of people right now are trying to find places to put their money, and you wouldn't even know the average Joe is trying to do that, right? All of a sudden, there is money around somewhere, somehow, and or more people are willing to spend it. Maybe they had it and we just never knew. Now they're willing to spend it and want to invest it in a way that makes a lot more sense. So this is all local.
Real estate, I think, stays more consistent probably than stock market, something like that. I would think.
And there's always a need for housing. So that's the biggest key there is there's always going to be a need for housing. The population growth is not stagnant, so it's always going to grow. And then we can't build enough units to house everybody. And unfortunately, right now we've got affordability factor, and so a lot of people can't afford. And so they're going to have to find a place to live, and they can live in my apartment.
Sure. So what is there a minimum investment for me as an investor?
Not necessarily. It depends on the deal and whether you go in syndication route or private equity funds. But today we're obviously talking about syndication. So if you're a sophisticated investor, we generally allow minimum of $20,000, and we don't typically go that low. But because I like to help people out, and I want them to be able to realize and what I've been able to do. Like my stepbrother, for example, he's doing $20,000 into a deal that we're doing right now. But generally, we try to do $50,000 to $100,000 at a minimum, and that's just to decrease overhead. Because once we've got an accounting team, they're having to set up bank transfers and all the paperwork and attorneys, so it just costs money if you've got 120,000 investors versus 10.
And each investor contributes the same dollar figure, or that can vary?
That can vary.
Yep. And then the shares according to that scenario.
Yep.
So Carey was about to ask a question before I interrupted her a minute ago about, does this local properties or across the country, or how's that work?
So we do across the country, but we're focused on growth markets unless we find a deal that is just outperforming our standards of basically cash on cash returns. And that's in the form of like a return on investment, cash on cash. It's just basically, in the stock market, you generally can get 8 to 10% per year. So we try to shoot for something a little bit better than that. So if it's not in a growth market, we're looking at a property in Wichita. It's not a huge growth. It's got 1% over the next 5 years in population growth, but the value there is in the cash on cash, which is 15+%. I can dive into that deal, but we'd be here for a long time.
So Hunter, to help us again break it down, remember you're talking to third graders, and I wasn't really at the top of the class in my third grade class, so let's break it down a little further.
Sure.
Let's give an example. For instance, you have been doing this for a little while.
Yep.
Can you give us an example of somebody that put in, let's say, $25,000, $50,000, $100,000 or whatever? There's no promises here. We understand that, but can you give some examples of what can happen if things work out right, just so we can better maybe. I like examples because my brain says, well, if so and so can do it, then maybe I can do it. So,
certainly. So we'll do 100,000. So we find a property, and there's actually 4 ways to really kind of make money on that property. And so we find this property, and we bring that investor in at 100,000. So we do our due diligence up front, and we send out our analysis packet, and this is what our expectations are. So as far as returns, the obvious one is going to be your cash on cash return. So let's say we find a deal, it's 15% cash on cash. So that's $15,000 a year you're making in passive income. If we do a syndication, we're doing monthly distributions. So it's just going to go straight to your bank account, and you can do with whatever you want. The third aspect is debt reduction. So now the tenants are paying down your debt. Second, and then the third is going to be appreciation of the asset. So it's going to appreciate with the market. It's also going to be forced appreciation because we're going to buy undervalued assets that either need a new property management company or the units just need to be remodeled. That way we can get more rents for those units. So that's what's considered forced appreciation. The fourth, and a lot of people might not look at it this way, we do what's called bonus depreciation or a cost segregation study on the property. And what that is to basically over the next 5-10 years, there's a shelf life for either appliances, carpet, things like that. So a CPA is going to go in there and bonus depreciate that in year 1, so you can write that off your taxes. So it's basically a tax deferral type program. So it's 4 different ways of making money on that money that you've invested.
Wow.
And as real estate agents, you're considered a real estate professional as long as you work 51 plus hours, and you can write a majority of that off.
51 a day or a week, a year? Or
a day, a week.
A week, okay.
So just to make sure that you're working more as a real estate agent, then you can write those off your taxes.
Very nice.
Obviously, I'm not a CPA, so full disclosure,
we understand.
Chat with your CPA.
Yeah, it's helpful to have examples of what can happen, though. So, because this is a whole new thought of mine, but boy, it seems like with all this, I don't want to say fabricated equity that we so many of us have, it seems like pulling $50,000, $100,000 out of something and putting it in something that has that kind of return would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think so. I'm looking at doing it myself, just because the appreciation in Williamson County alone has allowed me to do that. So I'm looking at doing a HELOC to fund some of the deals that are coming up. And I might be getting, we'll call it a 4% rate. Like I said earlier, if you're getting 10%, you're still making 6% on your money.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
And then to add to that, the other value that we bring with the forced depreciation is, so we're taking a property that needs a lot of work. Once we do all that work, let's say it takes 2 years to remodel that property, to get the tenants in, we can then refinance that asset. And we refinance it to pull all of our initial capital back out as best as possible. Obviously, it might not happen completely, but then you're going to remain your equity share. So whatever your $100,000 equals, let's say it's $1 million fundraise, you've got 10% equity share. That 10% remains in the property, but we've refinanced. We're trying to pull that $100,000 back out and go buy another property. So you can either keep that $100,000 if you want to, or
you can get it back or let it roll over.
Next project if you want to.
So my wife and I just are in the process. Thank you, Carey Ann, for putting this. What do you call it? A sweep loan? Is that what you call it?
Or the first lien equity line? Yeah,
is that what it
sweep
is?
loan.
Yeah, on our property that we have, so it's almost. I mean, we have about $1 million sitting there, so we could easily pull out 100 or two, and that would really pay for itself, wouldn't it, to do that?
Yeah. As long as the loan allows you to do that. Like you're not supposed to.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Home improvements on there.
Exactly.
No, you can pull it out for whatever purpose.
You can. Okay.
But if you do like a cash out refinance, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe that you're supposed to, because you can. I guess,
it's your cash.
But they want to hit you with that debt as well.
Well, this is like writing.
This is after the fact, but yes.
This is like writing a check. It's better than a HELOC, right?
So, if the intention, and if you apply with the intention that you're pulling that money out to go purchase another debt, then yes, we need to finish that sentence. But if you don't know what's happening there initially in the conversation, you do what you need to do with your money. So in your situation, you can do whatever. You already have the line; it goes up and down according to the approvable balance. So that is completely fine. But yeah, this is great. I mean, again, you need to see what makes the most sense, right? Because paying down one house, or like he referenced, you might be paying blanket interest for that, but you're going to be, doubling that or quadrupling that with a different, investment. This is the time to invest, right? I think we're all at that stage. Many people that are watching, maybe at that age group that we're all like, okay, what's our next, what is our next move? And I think this is the time to think about it for sure.
If you can borrow at 4% and receive 10%, that seems not too complicated.
Right. It's not too bad. The not caveat, but the keep in mind with the first year repositioning plan, that's where remodeling, new tenants, new property management, there's going to be probably a 0% return where we're going to dump everything.
Right, you're going to pause for a moment
and not do distribution.
I'm assuming that the best way is to look at that money has gone for
correct
5 or 10 years or something like that.
Yeah, correct.
And your payout is later. But woof, you've got some money, like poof, it's done. That's how I look at it. My extra savings that I do in different places, you don't realize you have that extra until you possibly need it.
Well, I think one of the reasons. I know that one of the reasons why I wanted Hunter on here was, first of all, of course, to learn more myself, but also, we're always doing things to give our agents not only tools in their tool belt, but reasons to contact their circle of influence, and have that conversation and be that expert and bring that added value to the consumer. And because just by having this conversation with somebody, as much as they might know about it, it's going to open up other potential doors as well. I sent out an email last week to my database, and I just said, if just curious about your home value, just hit reply and say curious. And I was surprised how many curiouses I got, just curious. And there's no guarantees in that, but it's the same way with, starting a conversation with this. Have you thought about pulling a little equity out of that, your current situation, since it has gone up so much? I mean, speaking of which, if you're already able to pull money out, you've lived here in a year now?
Yeah, 6 months, actually.
6 months.
Yep.
So you probably doubled your money on your house, huh?
Just about, actually. It's shocking. I couldn't believe it. People were buying houses in our exact neighborhood, and they've already gone up $400,000 since we bought.
In less than a year.
Yep.
Makes you want to sell.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like torn here.
Yeah.
But I got my wife saying no.
Yeah, don't sell. Don't sell. Use the money, but don't sell, because that's what Connie and I did in my infinite wisdom a year ago, and now I realize I could have got $200,000 or $300,000 more for it.
Yep.
Had I sat on it a little longer.
I know.
But anyway,
the hard thing. But then where do you go?
Yeah, that's the problem. Is where do you go? We just speaking of which,
Winnebago.
I know, that's starting to sound really good. Who wants to get into that business?
Yeah, there you go.
Because I'm thinking we could convert. We have a new selling plan.
Yeah, let's buy some land.
When you sell, it comes with an RV. Just sell here, and we give you
that.
Built-in exit plan.
Exactly.
When I was telling somebody the other day, when the market was so bad in 2008, there was all kinds of creativity going on, where they would throw in a car, or they would throw in a trip around the world, or all these different things. We can just throw in an RV now, so you have a place to put your head at night.
I'm with you.
In the meantime, we should be buying some land so we can park these RVs, and then charge them rent.
Now we're syndication. There you go.
Mindy's uncle actually has bought trailer parking spots down in Florida. That's what he buys.
Sure.
Makes a killing off of it.
Oh, it's incredible.
I mean,
Huge.
there's no upkeep hardly. Yeah.
Parking, car washes, and storage. Yeah. You think of all those places that are necessities.
Very passive income.
Huge.
Well, Hunter, is there anything else on this topic you can share before we wind this up here? We want to make sure that people have a good overview of why they need to reach out to you. First of all, before we forget, how does everybody reach out to you specifically in this to ask more questions and see if they maybe qualify or know somebody who does?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach me at the 425-652-3267.
One more time.
425-652-3267.
3267. So,
and your email address is
hunter@realty1musiccity.com.
So would you be the one that's leading the troops? Is there somebody in charge?
Yeah, so there's going to be your basically lead GP. He's in charge, and then he manages the overview.
Or she. Okay, I'm just checking. Who is that individual?
They are in charge.
Who is in charge of that?
It
the
just
group
depends.
picks?
The group picks
Okay.
someone with the most.
You're a little delayed, love.
Most experience.
Okay.
In the property.
But most experience in the property, not the process.
Property or process.
I gotcha.
It
Okay.
depends. It just depends on how we all decide, and a lot of times that could be your sponsor, your guarantor of the loan. But as far as doing your due diligence as an investor, is the best part is to look at the team and then review their background and even just Google their name and make sure that they don't have any bad reviews out there or anything, because you want to make sure that your investment's safe.
Solid, right. You don't want somebody coming back to get their money and then yours gets snagged with it, right? So, and then that leads to another question. Is there a true background check, or just we're searching Google?
Not really a true background check, but you can find your biggest people on Bigger Pockets, on Google's easy enough. You can see the deals that they're doing or their investment group page, things like that.
Okay. Very good. Well, this was great. This was an eye-opener for me.
Yeah.
Syndication. Love it. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Hopefully you learned lots. We cannot wait to have you come back. You've been listening to The Talk of Music City Real Estate.